A single pack of ground beef can contain meat from dozens of cattle, sometimes more. That is what makes ground beef different from a steak, a roast, or a single cut you can actually identify. Once meat is ground, anything on the surface can be mixed through the entire batch. The outside becomes the inside, and the bacteria that would normally stay on the surface no longer stay there. That is why where you buy ground beef matters more than most people realize. This is not a list about taste, it is not a list about price, and it is not a claim that every package sold at these stores will make you sick. This countdown is about transparency, handling, traceability, and how much confidence the average buyer can reasonably have when they pick up a package and throw it into the cart. Because if you cannot see who ground it, when it was ground, what cuts went into it, or where it was processed, then you are not really buying beef. You are buying trust. And some stores have earned a lot less of that trust than others. So here are the 12 worst grocery stores to buy ground beef at, followed by 4 that tend to give shoppers more information, better meat programs, or stronger butcher counter confidence. Then at the end, 5 rules that matter no matter where you shop. Number 12. Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's sells plenty of ground beef in neat, simple 1-pound packages. That convenience is exactly the problem. At most locations, the customer experience is built around pre-packed product, not a traditional full-service meat counter. You are choosing from what is already there, already sealed, already standardized. That means less ability to ask when it was ground, what trim was used, or whether anything about that batch was handled in-store. If your goal is speed and uniformity, that works. If your goal is maximum visibility, it does not. Number 11. Target. Target is a general retail machine that also happens to sell groceries. Its ground beef is usually sold the same way many shoppers buy everything else there. Grab, scan, leave. The packaging looks clean. The branding is calm. The labels say all natural, minimally processed, maybe even grass-fed on some items. But the actual shopping experience still pushes you toward sealed retail trays rather than a conversation with someone behind a meat case. And when the product is mainly a packaged item, the store is not really inviting you to question the grind. It is inviting you to trust the package. Number 10. Aldi. Aldi wins on efficiency. That is not always a compliment. The chain is designed to move people quickly through a stripped-down, cost-focused operation. That usually means less service, less in-store labor, and less room for specialty handling. Ground beef there is commonly sold as a packaged product selected from a refrigerated case, not something custom cut or freshly ground on request. Again, that does not automatically make it dangerous. It just means the system is optimized for price and speed first. And when ground beef is the one product where process matters most, low-friction convenience is not the same thing as confidence. Number 9. Sam's Club. Warehouse stores love scale. Ground beef does not always love scale back. Sam's Club sells large format packs and vacuum-packed rolls that make financial sense for families, meal preppers, and anyone feeding a crowd. But bulk meat bought through a warehouse model often puts the emphasis on volume, shelf life, and centralized packaging. The bigger the operation, the easier it is for the customer to lose sight of the actual origin story of the beef in front of them. You are not walking up to a butcher. You are loading a commodity-sized protein unit into a cart the size of a canoe. Number 8. Costco. This one will annoy people because Costco has one major advantage over many chains, a reputation for stronger quality control than the average big-box retailer. But quality control is not the same thing as perfect transparency. Costco still leans heavily on high-volume meat operations, tightly standardized packaging, and a member-driven warehouse model. If your local store has a solid meat department, that helps. But from the shopper's perspective, ground beef is still often a pre-portioned product in a large retail system built on uniformity. Costco is better than some chains on this list. It is still not where blind trust makes the most sense. Number 7. Safeway. Safeway sits in that middle zone where the branding feels more traditional than a discount chain, but the reality can still be heavily packaged and centralized depending on the location. Some stores have better meat counters than others. Some feel fully industrial. That inconsistency is the issue. With ground beef, inconsistency is not a small annoyance. It is the whole game. If one location feels like an actual grocery butcher operation and another feels like a cooler full of anonymous trays, then the shopper is left guessing. Number 6. Kroger. Kroger is one of the biggest grocery operators in America, and scale always cuts both ways. The company sells fresh-looking trays and large ground beef rolls under its own label, which works well for price-conscious shoppers stocking up. But massive distribution networks create distance between the consumer and the grind itself. The more standardized the product, the harder it becomes to know whether you are getting something prepared close to the point of sale or something that already traveled a long road before it reached that shelf. That distance matters because ground beef is not a steak. A steak keeps most of the risk on the outside. Ground beef spreads that risk through the whole product, and that is where this list starts getting worse. And standardized packaging makes it easy to mistake consistency for safety. They are not the same. One is appearance. The other is what happened before that tray was sealed at the processing plant. Number 5. Albertsons. Albertsons has many of the same problems as other national chains that rely heavily on packaged meat programs. The biggest issue is not one dramatic scandal, it is the quiet normality of the system. The average shopper sees a bright red package, a date, a discount sticker maybe, and assumes that all ground beef is basically interchangeable. But it is not. Ground beef quality depends on how many steps happened before it got to the shelf, how many pieces of meat were blended, and how much information the store is willing to give you without forcing you to dig for it. Albertsons can feel respectable. Respectable is not the same as transparent. Number 4. Food Lion. Food Lion tends to win shoppers through price and routine familiarity. But like several chains in this tier, its ground beef offering often feels like a product of the distribution system first and the meat department second. That means packaging does a lot of the persuasion. Bright color, clean tray, simple label, quick purchase. The shopper is reassured by appearance rather than by actual handling visibility. And that is a dangerous habit with ground beef because color is one of the easiest things to misread. Fresh-looking red beef can still be older than you think. Packaging gases can keep beef looking bright longer than many consumers realize. So if a store's ground beef program depends mostly on what the tray communicates visually, that should make you cautious. Number 3. Meijer. Meijer is convenient, broad, and familiar. It also represents the modern supermarket problem in a very clean form. When a store is trying to be everything at once, grocery, pharmacy, home goods, apparel, pet supplies, seasonal junk, then the meat department can start feeling like one more managed category rather than a craft operation. Ground beef becomes just another fast-moving packaged item, and once it is treated like that, the customer's ability to judge freshness or sourcing gets weaker. Number 2. Walmart Neighborhood Market or Supercenter. Walmart has become so large that it does not just sell food, it shapes how food moves. The company now operates its own case-ready beef facility in Kansas to process and package beef for regional distribution. On paper, that sounds efficient and even more traceable. In practice, it also confirms the industrial logic behind the system. Process at scale, package centrally, distribute widely, standardize the result. That model is good for volume. It is good for consistency. It is good for price pressure. It is not naturally good for the kind of local visibility that makes ground beef less of a black box. And that brings us to number 1. Number 1, Walmart. Yes, Walmart lands here twice because its grocery presence is so large that it deserves the full spotlight. If you want the purest example of what makes supermarket ground beef hard to trust, this is it. Huge footprint, huge throughput, huge dependence on packaged beef moving through an enormous retail machine. The more beef is treated like a national logistics exercise, the further the average shopper gets from the actual moment of grinding. And with ground beef, that moment matters. Now, before the comments explode, This is not a claim that Walmart beef is automatically unsafe. It is a claim that if your personal standard is maximum confidence, maximum local handling visibility, and minimum mystery, then this is the kind of system that should make you ask harder questions, not fewer. Now the shift. Because some stores do give buyers more reasons to relax. Here are 4 better places to buy ground beef. Number 4. Wegmans. Wegmans has a stronger reputation than most chains for treating food retail as more than shelf management. Even its packaged ground beef is marketed with cleaner ingredient language and a more deliberate quality identity. More importantly, the overall store culture tends to make the meat department feel like a real department, not just a refrigerated endpoint for anonymous product. That matters because confidence is not only about the package, it is about whether the store environment supports actual standards. Number 3. Whole Foods. Whole Foods is expensive. That is obvious. But the chain also gives shoppers something many other stores do not: clearly stated meat standards. Whole Foods says its meat is traceable to farm or ranch, sold under strict animal welfare requirements, and produced under rules that reject added hormones, antibiotics, and several processing shortcuts. Expensive does not automatically mean better. But explicit standards are better than vague promises, and ground beef is one place where details count. Number 2. Publix. Publix openly leans into the idea of a real meat department. The company advertises fresh meat in stores every day and says customers can ask meat cutters to custom cut, trim, or repackage selections. That kind of service matters. Even if you are still buying packaged ground beef, a store built around direct meat counter interaction usually gives you more practical ways to ask questions and judge the program than a store built entirely around sealed product. Number 1. Costco, with one condition. Costco only lands in the good category if you use it strategically, not blindly, not because it is trendy, not because the pack is giant. Costco can work well for shoppers who know exactly what they are looking at, buy high-turnover product, and pay attention to labels, packaging dates, and storage. The chain scale gives it strong turnover and generally disciplined handling. But if you treat any giant package as automatically superior, you are missing the point. Better does not mean magical. It means you still shop with your eyes open. And here is the real truth that matters more than the ranking. A store can have decent standards and still sell a product that deserves caution. That is why the best section in this video is shorter than the worst one. Safer options exist. Risk-free ground beef does not for anyone shopping. Ground beef itself is the risk. That is the part most people miss. This video is not really about one evil grocery chain hiding in the shadows. It is about the nature of ground beef. USDA guidance is blunt on this. When beef is ground, bacteria that would normally stay on the surface can be mixed throughout the product. That is why a rare steak and a rare burger are not the same risk. It is also why the color of the meat tells you less than people think, and why the label on the package matters more than the average shopper realizes. A USDA-inspected package of ground beef should carry an establishment number written as EST followed by a number. That number tells you where it was processed. If you do not see it, ask. Most people never do. They look at color instead. That is a mistake, because color can be manipulated by packaging conditions. Beef looks red because consumers like red. The industry knows this. Packaging technology can use oxygen or other gas mixtures to preserve a bright appearance, extend case life, and keep the product looking appealing in the meat case. That does not automatically mean the meat is bad. It means bright red color is a marketing signal as much as a freshness signal. Brown spots can matter. Odor can matter. Dates can matter. But color alone is not the truth. So, if you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. The prettier package is not always the safer package. Now here are the 5 rules that actually protect you. Rule 1. Buy the freshest grind you can verify. If the store has a real butcher counter and can tell you when the beef was ground, that is a major advantage. If the store can grind to order, even better. The less mystery between the cut and the package, the better your odds of knowing what you are buying. Rule 2. Check the label for the processing plant. Look for the USDA establishment number. It is one of the few pieces of hard information the package gives you. If the package tells you nothing useful and no one in the department can answer basic questions, that tells you something too. Rule 3. Stop using color as your main test. Consumers are trained to trust redness. That instinct is outdated. Packaging can hold attractive color longer than many people realize. If you are judging meat with your eyes alone, you are playing a game the package was designed to win. Rule 4. When in doubt, buy whole cuts and grind them yourself. This is the move most cautious shoppers eventually make. A chuck roast or another whole cut gives you a more visible starting point. You know what the meat looked like before it was ground because you saw the whole cut. That removes one of the biggest unknowns in supermarket beef. Rule 5. Cook ground beef properly, not approximately, not based on vibes, not because your uncle says pink burgers are fine. USDA guidance says ground beef should reach a safe internal temperature of 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Use a thermometer. Ground beef is one of the cheapest foods people buy and one of the dumbest foods to gamble with. There are 2 more habits smart shoppers use, even if they are not technically part of the official 5. First, buy ground beef last so it stays cold as long as possible, and get it into a refrigerator quickly. Second, freeze what you will not use soon instead of trusting yourself to remember it later. Ground beef gives you a smaller margin for laziness than many other foods. That is not fear, that is math. Every extra minute of bad handling is one more chance for a preventable mistake. The people who avoid problems with ground beef are usually not geniuses. They are just boring. They keep it cold. They keep raw meat away from everything else. They wash hands, boards, and utensils. Then they cook it fully and move on with their lives. That kind of routine is not dramatic, which is probably why so many people skip it. And one more thing. If a package feels puffed up, leaking, or unusually warm, do not debate it. Put it back. Savings disappear the second a risky package reaches your kitchen. Ground beef is one of those products where caution is not paranoia for anyone. It is just respect for how quickly a small decision can become a very unpleasant night. So what is the final answer? You do not need a perfect grocery store. You need better standards than the average shopper brings into one. If a store relies heavily on sealed, anonymous, centrally processed ground beef, treat that as a warning sign. If a store encourages real interaction with the meat department, clearer sourcing, and more visible handling standards, that is usually a better bet. But no chain, no brand, and no pretty label removes the basic truth that ground beef is a blended product with more built-in risk than a whole cut. That is why the safest shopper in the building is usually not the richest one or the pickiest one. It is the one who asks questions, reads labels, stops worshiping color, and cooks the meat correctly when it gets home. Because food safety is rarely about one dramatic mistake. It is about how many small assumptions you make before dinner. And ground beef is one of the easiest places to make the wrong ones. So next time you are standing in that fluorescent meat aisle, staring at a bright red tray that looks perfectly normal, ask yourself a very simple question. Do I know what I am actually looking at? If the answer is no, put it back. And if you had to rank these stores yourself, which chain would you trust the least, and which one gets your money when ground beef is on the list? That is where the real conversation starts.